What if one or two people could change everything? Spark a pandemic, crash a community, or reshape society? Well, these are the ideas that we're exploring in Malcolm Gladwell's Revenge of the Tipping Point. And this book revisits the idea of a tipping point. That's the critical threshold at which small change causes a system to undergo significant, often rapid, irreversible shifts. And it's about how small changes, hidden patterns, and key individuals can potentially trigger massive outcomes. So there's this danger of uniformity. This is one of the biggest ideas. And it starts off with an unusual example. These are the animals, cheetahs. And they're so genetically similar that apparently if you take a skin graft from one cheetah and put it on another one, it doesn't react. They don't need any form of immunosuppressant drugs. It works. And that's unheard of in nature. And it sounds really good. The thing is, it's really dangerous because they're genetically so similar. And it means if a virus spreads, there's almost no resistance. So in fact, that did happen, and I didn't know. Cheetahs were almost wiped out. So the lesson to take away here is that diversity actually means resilience. Uniformity is actually vulnerability. And this can apply to humans too. So for example, there was an elite community in America where success was everything. All the children were going to top universities, top careers. They had these perfect lives planned out and expected for all the children who grew up there. But you can't just follow in the footsteps of your parents and think you're going to do this. What actually happened, there was a kind of bubble in tension, rising anxieties, mental health crises, and unfortunately a cluster of suicides in high-performing teens. So these teens just got to the point where sadly it was too much. And the reason is that extreme environments that prompt uniformity and put pressure to do that actually have hidden pressures that are building up inside, and fragile systems can then break. The 25 to 30% rule is one of the most powerful ideas in this book. Because when a group reaches 25 to 30% representation, that's when everything changes. So for example, if there's a board of 10 people, they're all male, and one woman joins, they are the woman. Whereas two women, they still feel isolated and they're often thought of as friends. Whereas when there's 3 women who join, that's when a real voice would occur and where there's a coalition. And that's all true with minorities as well. You get no longer a kind of token minority on a board. If you can get a good 25 to 30%, that's when you have a right amount to shape a culture. So it's not just gender, it's race as well. The same pattern actually shows up not just in corporate boards, neighborhood demographics, and social movements. Overstories, these are the hidden force. And overstories are narratives that we often absorb without thinking. So like when I tell you, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, thanks for watching, you've got this far, I summarise plenty of books. That's not really a subtle overstory. An overstory shapes how we see the world, and they can enable change quickly. And the example would be same-sex marriages in the US. Now, if you look back, George W. Bush in 2004 actually banned same-sex marriages, whereas this was changed completely in 2015. And although it's 11 years later, on the scale of things, from a US president saying this is banned to actually it not being banned and being allowed, it's a massive shift. And Gladwell actually argues that it was shows like Will and Grace. I saw a couple of episodes, I really didn't like it. However, lots of people did, and that public opinion actually shifted the attitude towards same-sex relationships, because instead of seeing Will as a token gay person who's different, they identified with this Will guy and thought, he's a nice guy. As I say though, I've seen only about half an episode. I'm sure there's plenty of videos about that, but let's get back to the script. Because media, it doesn't just reflect culture at times. It rewrites culture, and it can rewrite the story from people who are watching it. So do think carefully about what you're watching. We can think without thinking. The OxyContin epidemic. Now this is tragic, and this is a strong opioid that sadly caused and is causing massive amounts of deaths across the world, but mainly in America. And there's several chilling examples, and Malcolm Gladwell argues that this opioid crisis wasn't random, but it was almost engineered, because there's these drug sales reps, and they were actually targeting a super spreader doctor. So instead of thinking, there's 100 doctors, we'll go and visit them all once, they were thinking, who's prescribing which opioid? Oh, those ones are prescribing a lot. Let's target them and try and change their prescribing practice to prescribe our drug. And they found actually that people, the sales reps, even the number of visits to the doctor had a tipping point, where after that point they would go, okay, I'll just keep prescribing this OxyContin. And it was actually 24 visits in a year. That is enormous. I've worked as a medical doctor in the UK, and I don't really see pharmaceutical reps at all at the moment, but in the past it used to be maybe 1 or 2 a year. 24 visits per year from the same pharmaceutical company is enormous. And what they'd often do is use attractive reps and create a kind of psychological pressure to influence the individual so they prescribe more. And interestingly, as it happened, if you looked at the data, there was a massive variation across the US in terms of more deaths, more prescriptions. And this was because in some states, a third copy of a prescription was required, and it had to be filed with the Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement. So the ones that had that extra hurdle and the thought of somebody potentially is looking at my prescribing, that added bit of regulation, those states had significantly less drug deaths than the other states. But unintentionally regarding OxyContin, in 2010, it was designed to make the pill more difficult to crush up. This is because research had shown some people had been crushing it up and misusing it. This then meant people had to buy the reformed OxyContin pill that was more expensive and couldn't be misused as easily. And unfortunately, that led to a tragic circumstance in which many people then shifted from their drug of choice, from OxyContin, to more deadly things such as heroin and fentanyl, and drug deaths continued. This is tragic, but the policy that was there did actually save some lives. So the main thing to try and keep it a bit more positive is that small policy changes can prevent massive disasters. There's super spreaders. Some people spread ideas better than others. I'd love it if I was spreading ideas through this channel. Others spread it better, but that's fine. Other people spread diseases more. And you could look at the COVID pandemic as an example, where a few individuals infected dozens, whereas others infected none. But this is similar in relation to trends, behaviours. It only takes one or two, and advertisers know that very well. That's why they're trying to pay influencers to have their hidden ads on social media. So what's the big takeaway for you? The world is not random. It's shaped by hidden thresholds, powerful narratives, and a handful of very influential people. If you can understand that, that's understanding the tipping point, and that allows you to understand how the world really works. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.